All right, everybody, welcome to episode 50 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. Bill, brother, we're turning 50. We're old, man. What are we going to do?
Dude, I'm so fired up. We can sign up for AARP. It's an amazing time in our lives.
Dude, we get, start getting all that junk mail about Social Security and what we can do. We got to start buying gold. That's what all the commercials tell me. I got to start investing in gold. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And as our boy, our DAP network brother, Rocky Dynasty FF Addict says, almost as old as Bill.
Ha ha ha.
Rocky, that's very insulting because nothing is almost as old as Bill. Get it right. Oh,
Shit. This is how it's gonna be.
shots fired. Shots fired. Well, before Bill drop kicks me through the screen, how you doing today, Bill? You doing good, man?
Yeah, good. I don't know. It's halfway through the regular season. It's we're really starting to kind of figure out how our team is, but don't overreact yet. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in this next 6 weeks where, guys are going to go off on IR and all that kind of stuff. So, evaluate your teams, figure out if you even have a chance of making the playoffs. If you don't, start the rebuild, but, be a little bit more, patient with your teams this year than you typically are.
And this is a crazy year with schedules being moved around due to COVID and injuries and things like that. I mean, there are some 2-4 teams that probably should look at maybe trying to buy some pieces and make a run for the playoffs because they're scoring a lot of points. They've just gotten unlucky. And there were like some 3-3 teams that need to be shutting it down and selling off and getting into rebuild mode because they got lucky. They've played a couple teams that have been battling injuries and, battling COVID scheduling issues. And their point total is low. And, this record says you should be going for it, but you really shouldn't be. So it's kind of a crazy season. I think it's crazier than any season I can remember.
But if I'm in that situation, I still am a little bit more patient because, like, what if you run off a couple more wins just by chance? I mean, then all of a sudden you're a playoff team, and who knows what happens then. That's why I mean, like, just don't shut it down too quick. Is my point. I think you just have to wait a little bit longer than you normally would, like, to shut her down.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you really have to evaluate your team. Your record almost doesn't matter in a way this year because, like I said, there are some 2-4 teams that should kind of be going for it based on just maybe you had a couple of injuries in the beginning of the season. Your team's starting to get healed up. You're still scoring a lot of points, but other teams, man, the record might be good, but the team actually isn't, and they might just be a scheduling thing more than a team talent thing. So it's really all about evaluating your team. But we did our little spiel about how crazy this season's been so far. So let's get into the real craziness of the games that were played this week. So first one we'll go into was maybe the craziest game of the week, Texans-Titans. Man, Watson and Tannehill are just so damn good. I mean, and I was not on the Tannehill train. I thought he had a really successful season last year. Didn't think he could fully do it again. And he's done it again. And I think he might even be better than he was last year, which he was pretty damn good. So, and, it's amazing what getting rid of a bad head coach will do to a quarterback. Because since the Texans have fired Bob, I mean, Deshaun Watson has just been losing his mind. I mean, we were talking about, possibly, dropping Brandon Cooks in redraft leagues, never starting him in Dynasty, maybe using him as a throw-in in trades. And now, I mean, the dude is just putting up, wide receiver 1 weeks every week since Bob left. So that's what I got. What did you get anything from that game, Bill?
I mean, Tannehill does look really good. He's just really good with that play action game. And, just his mobility is enough for him to move around and make some plays. Cooks has 21 targets in the last 2 weeks, and that's pretty incredible. And it's just going to be a high octane passing attack for the rest of the year because their defense isn't nearly as good as it once was, and their running game's nothing to speak of. So, I mean, that's pretty much their only option for moving the ball. And, I'm not real happy if I have any of the running backs, obviously, for Houston, but I'm exceptionally happy if I have a running back for Tennessee because he is one fast mofo. I mean, it's just crazy how fast he covers so much ground. Like each stride is like 12 yards, and Derrick Henry, that is, I remembered his name. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know. They're going to be, actually, Tennessee might be a little bit more of a potent offense than we expected, now that they got A.J. Brown back. And, once they get Corey Davis back, they're going to have Jonnu Smith when he gets healthy. I mean, that's a pretty, it's an offense that you have to pay attention to, pieces all over the field. So that's, yeah, they're going to be one to watch for the rest of the year, I think.
Yeah, they're going to be fun to watch. And you talked about Jonnu, but, Anthony Ferkser also blew it up in that game. So it's almost like they didn't miss a beat at that tight end spot. And this week is Battle of the Big Dogs, where you have Tennessee going up against Pittsburgh. And someone threw a stat that this is only the fifth time that 2 undefeated teams have met in week 7 or later in the NFL season. And the winner of all of those games have made it to the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top and if that team does end up representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. All right, next one we got here is Bengals Colts. And my big pull from this is, who the hell is Marcus Johnson? I mean, all of a sudden, the beginning of the season, we're talking about T.Y. Hilton. We're talking about Pittman. We're talking about Paris Campbell. We're talking about Jack Doyle. Maybe Trey Burton does something. Jonathan Taylor. Ain't nobody talking about Marcus Johnson. Bill, who the hell is Marcus Johnson?
I mean, it's kind of he's getting the targets. He's making the plays. I mean, it's impressive. He's got an opportunity and he's stepped up and, taken it. T.Y. looks really bad. That's kind of part of it. They lose, they don't have a T.Y. Hilton like they once had. They don't really, Paris Campbell's out. So all of a sudden, Zach Pascal and Marcus Johnson are the guys, it seems. And Pittman, of course, is also hurt. So it's man, they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel, and he's stepping up. It's kind of like Travis Fulgham. It's a guy who gets an opportunity, and he's making the best of it, and he might have earned himself an opportunity, next year just from this, few games. So good for him. He was a pretty hot ad in the teams or in waivers this week. I noticed there's a lot of decent sized bids for him. Sometimes he didn't even get picked up until after, first come, first serve. But I saw some $10, $12 bids on him, and why not? I mean, right now in bye weeks, dang, just getting anybody that can produce, I mean, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I love guys like that. I love guys that kind of have bounced around and, they find themselves a spot. And it seems to be happening a lot more this year due to just the insane amount of injuries that have been happening. So good for him. It's good to see a guy who's bounced around a little bit latch on and at least have a few weeks of glory. So next up, Falcons, Vikings. Julio Jones and Justin Jefferson both get 2 touchdowns. We kind of have the old school and the new school colliding in that game. Man, I had Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 2 in the process. CeeDee Lamb was my wide receiver 1. That was even before he got drafted to Dallas. This is in the lead up to the draft. But I didn't expect him to put it all together so quickly. I thought there was going to be a learning curve, but I mean, we're starting to find out with CeeDee Lamb, with Justin Jefferson, that no learning curve is required for these guys. I mean, they're just good. They step out onto the field and they do what they do. Anything that you saw in this game, Bill?
No, I mean, Cousins, 3 picks. That's a little bit of a. I mean, I think that's just what we're going to see. Is he's just going to be launching it, and hopefully he's accurate on his passes or not. I mean, he still ended up being decent fantasy wise, but I mean, I can't imagine that the Vikings are happy with him right now. I mean, Julio might be the best wide receiver of our time. I mean, aside from like Moss, like I think he might be better than Calvin as a total wide receiver. Like, I mean, Calvin was the most dominant wide receiver in my opinion, but it doesn't make him the best. And so, it's kind of the argument of Barry Sanders or somebody else. They just do it different ways. And I mean, I think like he might be the best wide receiver. I mean, he's of the last 30 years, with the exception of Moss. So
yeah,
and Rice obviously doesn't count in that, but
and Bill, I can't really argue with you about that. I mean, the man if he's on the field, like he can dominate anybody, any team, any defense. It doesn't matter who you are, what you plan to do against him. He can go out there and he can dominate, and he proved it in this game. And it's crazy. I was listening to the open bar yesterday, and shout out to J, Mike, and Gabe. And Adam Thielen is like wide receiver 1 or 2. I can't remember which one. Justin Jefferson is wide receiver 7, and Kirk Cousins is QB 20. It's insane that Kirk Cousins is supporting 2 top 10 wide receivers, and he is top 20.
Well, that just shows you what few weapons they actually utilize. He's just launching it downfield and hoping for the best, and then plus a bunch of interceptions. I mean, those are the negative points that are hurting him. But yeah, I mean, that's the answer to the question of, hey, if you think this guy's going to be a top wide receiver, this guy's going to be a top wide receiver, how can we not think that the quarterback's going to be a top quarterback? Exhibit A right here.
And it's funny because, during the offseason, I said this about Derek Carr. I said, well, if we think Henry Ruggs is going to be good, and we think Bryan Edwards is going to be good, and we think Josh Jacobs is going to be good, and we think Darren Waller is going to be good, well, how can we say that Derek Carr is not going to be good? And Kirk Cousins kind of said, hold my beer.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And he's kind of doing it because we also have to remember, Dalvin Cook didn't play in this game, but Dalvin Cook has played every other game. Yeah. Dalvin Cook is also a top 3, I think, running back, and they've actually kind of gotten Irv Smith in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's starting to look okay. Yeah.
And it's like Kirk Cousins, quarterback 20.
Go green.
It's just, go green. It's just one of those things where, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but that's what fantasy is. Sometimes it's just a lot of things that don't make sense. So we're going to move from that to the Broncos and the Pats. And Tim Patrick and Philip Lindsay both get 101 yards to help their team kick 6 field goals. I mean, it was amazing as I was watching some highlights of this game and looking at the box score, and I knew what the score was, obviously, before I started doing the breakdown of it, but I'm like, man, Tim Patrick had 101 yards receiving. Philip Lindsay had 101 yards rushing. And they kicked 6 field goals? How is that even possible? You would think that if you see a running back and a wide receiver both get over 100, they scored a couple points. You're not thinking maybe it's a dominant performance, but you're thinking 6 field goals. And our man John McGlynn brings up a good point. A few key drops by Drew Lock's receivers, and that'll kill you every time. I mean, trust me, we'll get to a game in a little bit where there were drops that totally killed the team. But yeah, it's funny, but hey, they got to win. They beat the Patriots. Yeah, it's not your dad's Patriots, but a win is a win.
Patriots with 2 practices in like the last 2 weeks as well. So, I mean, that's part of the issue. And I mean, I'll be the first, I mean, that's why I can't condemn the Patriots too much for this game. And I'm not going to give much credit to Denver for this game because they had such a huge advantage over New England, entering the game.
I will say, in the Broncos' defense, though, we did see the Titans last week come out onto the field after not really being able to practice for like 2 weeks and totally barnstorm the Buffalo Bills. So
yeah, here, Derrick Henry, run.
Hey, listen, Ryan Tannehill had a good game in that one too.
He did. I'm teasing.
He was chucking it around to freaking Jonnu Smith, which cost me a game, but we're not going to talk about that. That game's over. We're going to move on.
That's in the past.
That's in the past. We're not thinking about that anymore. So we're going to move on to the next game here. The football team of Washington against the New York Giants. Both of these teams are praying for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway, man. These teams, they stink, man. They're not good. I mean, you can talk about Washington's defensive line, and when they're all there, it's insane. It's elite, but they really don't have anything else besides Terry McLaurin. And then the Giants are just kind of like, they have one good corner, and that's it. And Saquon Barkley, if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think they're hoping for Trevor Lawrence, but there's a Adam Gase-led Jets that wants to argue the point of who's going to get that pick, and I'm pretty certain that he has the clear advantage over those two in getting that pick. Yeah, so I think that especially for New York, I think that that's probably not going to happen. But I mean, Washington has a decent shot, especially if the Jets somehow let Darnold play and somehow they end up winning a couple games or something like that. But it's just an ugly, terrible football game with 2 really bad teams and just not a lot to talk about, really.
Yeah, I agree. So we ain't going to talk about it. We're going to move on. The Ravens and the Eagles, both of these birds were attacking on the ground with Lamar Jackson and Miles Sanders. I mean, Rocky nailed it on the head. Gase hasn't been fired to ensure Trevor Lawrence. It's the only reason why he's on that team. It's my belief anyway. We'll get to that a little bit when we talk about the Jets. But yeah, I mean, I've been saying that for weeks now. That's the only reason why he hasn't gotten fired is because they know they can ensure themselves an 0-16 or a 1-15 season and get that number 1 pick, kick Adam Gase to the curb, as soon as, the week 17 game is done and, go get themselves Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, I agree with you, Rock. So back to the Ravens and the Eagles, Rocky's favorite team here. Lamar's not doing it through the air, but in this game, he did do it on the ground, over 100 yards rushing. Miles Sanders, back-to-back weeks with a 70-plus yard rush. Got knocked out of his hands on the end zone, and then a name that we didn't talk about much during the offseason and haven't talked much about during the season, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside picks it up in the end zone for the touchdown, and Here's a quick JJ Arcega Whiteside fact: 8 fantasy points, no receptions, no yards, a fumble recovery in the end zone, and a 2-point conversion. So there you go. If you think doing nothing can't get you anything, that's false. It can get you 8 fantasy points. So
talk about efficiency.
Go JJ. Yeah, man. I mean, could you imagine if Alvin Kamara could just have 0 receptions, 0 rushes, and have 8 fantasy points? I mean, that was, even the greatest players in the game can't get that done. But was there anything? Oh, and by the way, on Miles Sanders, it looks like he's going to miss a few weeks, which is unfortunate because I think he seems to be struggling on a per touch basis, but he just seems to be able to break off that one big one every game, which is kind of all you need for fantasy. So it's unfortunate for him. But Bill, anything that you saw in this game?
I mean, Lamar still doesn't look great. He's struggling with accuracy. That's the biggest concern. It's just like anything that's not wide open, and even when it is, he's like skying wide open people. It's, I don't know what's got to change. I don't know if he's just his knees bothered him, and so he's just kind of maybe off. And maybe the defenses are doing something different this year, and it's kind of throwing him off. And it's going to take a while for him to figure out what he needs to do against them. I mean, that's probably the better guess. Teams have adjusted a little bit to take away some of his easier reads. So, that's it. The Eagles, I mean, they're just in trouble, like with their lack of offensive line, and it seems like every game somebody else is getting hurt for them. And I mean, I don't know how a team can keep doing that. I mean, you're literally going to be pulling guys off the street to suit up and potentially play for them.
Yeah. And, a lot of jokes get made at the NFC East behalf, but I know that the Cowboys going into this week had the most missing starters of any team in the league, and I know Philly can't be that far behind just based on all the offensive line injuries that they've had. They're missing now not one but 2 of their big-time tight ends. I mean, we talked about him earlier. Travis Fulgham is literally doing a great job, but he's in there because no Alshon Jeffrey, no Deshaun Jackson, no Jalen Reagor. I mean, they're really like kind of skimming, and they found kind of a little hidden gem. But that's and Rocky, with a good point here. They only have 2 of their projected starters on offense healthy, and ironically, one of them is Wentz, which is the biggest knock that we've had on Wentz for forever, is that he can't stay healthy. And it's just him and Jason Kelce, excuse me, at this point. So, Rocky, as a Cowboys fan, I feel your pain. So, but we're gonna move on now to Browns Steelers, and man, this was kind of an exciting game. We thought we were, gonna see the new look Browns. They were 4-1 going into that game, and they got dog walked by the Steelers behind James Conner and Chase Claypool, who followed up his 4 touchdown performance with another pretty good game. I mean, it wasn't 4 touchdowns obviously, but I mean it was still a solid game from him. Anything you saw in this one, Bill?
I mean, Baker has proven that he sucks. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I was talking about this the other day on Superflex Super Show about he is becoming Trubisky-esque in his accuracy, 12 to 15 yards down the field. I mean, he is just not good, and something's either he's got to improve somehow, or they're going to be looking for somebody new sooner rather than later. And I think that was my biggest takeaway. That's the biggest difference between those 2 teams is they have one has a good quarterback that's able to, make the throws that are required, and the other one cannot.
Now, do you think that and I'm just talking about this game, not Baker overall.
Mhm.
Do you think his poor play in this game is due to the rib injury he had, or do you just think it's just Baker being Baker?
Well, I can't really base. I don't know. But it's not like he hasn't struggled with those throws when they were winning. I mean, they just went up against a better team, and that's, I mean, I'm not saying Baker playing poorly is what lost them the game. I'm just saying that Baker struggles making those throws every game. It's just that they're playing a better team, so you can't make those bad passes without getting, without being punished for it. Whereas maybe in those other games, because they were ahead or, they had some of those trick plays and all that kind of stuff, it might maybe masked. I mean, when you start throwing touchdowns each week by wide receivers, that kind of tells you something. I mean, it's fun, but it's also, man, these guys can throw the ball better than Baker.
Yeah. And yeah, Baker kind of had that flash of brilliance in his rookie season where we kind of all got on board, and then, they brought OBJ, and then we really were like, wow, they can be, one of the elite teams. And after that rookie year, we've kind of seen, it looks like Baker is the one holding them back. I mean, they've switched coaches, and the run game looks really good. And, Jarvis Landry's throwing touchdowns, and the defense, defense didn't do it in this game, but the defenses look decent, even with a lot of injuries on that side of the ball for the Browns. But yeah, I agree with you. They went up in class, and they couldn't hang. It's easy to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys of the world and those type of teams, but when you start getting into, Super Bowl contenders, which I think the Steelers are. I think the Steelers are in that class of Super Bowl contenders. It's make or break, and I think they broke. So we'll see what happens from that point on. And hey, John McGlynn brought this up earlier. Jets trading Darnold soon. I don't think they trade him to the end of the season, but guess what? The Browns might be wondering if they can procure the services for, maybe a mid-round pick or something like that. I'm not saying it will happen, but I mean, it would be interesting to see, because I think that I think Darnold in that system, I mean, he would be going from Jamison Crowder and Braxton Berrios to Jarvis Landry and OBJ. It would be interesting to see what he could do with an offensive line that could actually protect in a running game. I don't know if he could even handle all that talent all at once, but I mean, that could be a spot. I think there are going to be a lot of openings this year in the quarterback market, even more openings than we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think Cleveland's pretty unlikely personally. I just don't think that they would want to sign. If they do anything, they're going to sign like a veteran that they can kind of bring in and they know is solid, because that's probably all they need. I could see him going to like somewhere like Indy or something like that, some aging veteran one where you can kind of learn under him, learn under Rivers for a minute and then do his thing. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see Darnold there for sure. I mean, I think him in Cleveland would be incredible, but Steve throwing out the Fitzpatrick to the Browns, that would be incredible. I'm not sure he plays the type of quarterback that they want. I think they want a pretty conservative quarterback that's just going to make his reads and throw it to the open guy, not to the triple covered guy. But yeah, that would be awesome to see for sure. Anybody there that's decent would be awesome to see, to be honest.
But wouldn't OBJ love that? Because wasn't that what?
Yeah, he would.
Wasn't that what he had with the Giants with Eli Manning, where it was kind of like, look, I know everyone else on this team sucks, so I'm just going to throw it to you. I need you to figure it out and do something with the ball. Whether he was double covered, triple covered, fell down and was laying on the ground, Eli was still throwing it to him. So I think
it'd be great. It'd be so fun.
Ryan Fitzpatrick plus the Browns equals awesomeness, and I think with the competitive fire we saw from Jarvis Landry in that Hard Knocks, I think him and Ryan Fitzpatrick would get along real well because Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be like, look, you just need to get open, and I'm going to just fling the ball to you.
Don't even get open. I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, he doesn't care if you're open. Jarvis, you don't have to be open. I'm going to throw the ball.
Yeah, it's going somewhere.
OBJ, you don't have to be open.
Someone's catching it. I don't know who, but somebody's catching it.
Yeah, like that would be awesome. And I'm actually gonna go on a little Ryan Fitzpatrick rant towards the end of this because I've seen just some things on Twitter that I need to rant about. But that's gonna come in a little bit.
Okay.
So Bears Panthers. DJ Moore is Carolina's top receiver this week in a low-scoring loss, and this is something I've kind of been tracking because there's been a conversation about who is the number one in Carolina. Is it Robbie Anderson or is it DJ Moore? And this is just a point. This isn't to say this guy is the number one and this guy is not the number one, but in their wins, Robbie Anderson ends up being more highly targeted, and in their losses, DJ Moore ends up being more highly targeted. Now, that's just, I'm not saying one thing leads to the other. This isn't a causation thing. This is just looking at the scores and looking at wins and losses and looking at who gets targeted more. So is it the fact that when they're down, they feel like DJ Moore is going to give them the best chance to come back if, in those situations? Maybe that's what Matt Rule and the coach and Joe Brady think, and when they're winning, they can kind of get it to Robbie Anderson a little bit more because he's gonna, he's not the long guy this year. He's actually doing a lot of everything. So I don't know. It's just something I saw and wanted to throw out there. But
yeah, that's interesting.
DJ Moore, he was the guy this week. Unfortunately, it was in a loss. What about you, Bill? You see anything?
No, I just don't know how the Bears keep winning. It just blows my mind. Nick Foles, he's the answer. The new Allen Iverson, right? Like, he's just the answer.
I think the answer is more the defense than anything else.
I know. Yeah.
Listen, I joke around my wife's stepbrother all the time, and he's, he jokes around that Nick Foles is the god, and they're winning now because of Nick Foles and everything. We joke around about it and everything, but Nick Foles is good for your A-Rob shares, but I think just the fact that defense is kind of back to where they were 2 years ago, a little bit, is the reason for the wins. And I don't think they've really played, a murderer's row of teams. They beat Tampa Bay, but they also beat a 43-year-old quarterback 3 days after he threw 40 plus passes. So, as we know, Bill, as you get older, you do that physical activity. You don't just bounce back the next day at peak form. You need a little bit of rest time. And I think Tom Brady, as bad as as good as he is, Father Time is undefeated. So I think he needed a little bit more than 3 days to bounce back. But hey, they keep winning. Who knows? Maybe they're in the Super Bowl. All right, I couldn't say that with a straight face, but we're gonna move on to the next one here. Lions and Jags. Swift and Golladay, lead the Lions to a blowout win. And is this the Swift breakout game? DeAndre Swift, here's your prize. You're now the man in Detroit?
No. I think he was only on the field for like 37% of the plays, so that's still far away from being the man. I think his ceiling is if he was just is a Kamara. He's not going to be the guy that gets all the carries. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm not saying he'll ever be Kamara, but I'm just saying like that's his. That's kind of going to be his role. I think he just doesn't have that size, and of course, I'm happy about it, but I think that the biggest thing for that offense was Galladay getting back on the field. I mean, if you see Stafford, like his average depth of target, like before, like it was 10.7 last year, and that was like the longest by far for him in a long time. And the first few games without Galladay, it was down to 9.0, and then this last game with Galladay, it was back up to 11. So it just shows that Galladay is a big part of the offense, and pulling the defense back a little bit, and it's somebody they got to take into account. And I think that Marvin Jones is just kind of petered out. I don't think he's anywhere near where he was like early last year. So, I mean, he's kind of a guy that's on the cutting block for a lot of my rosters now.
Yeah, and
the defense. I'm sorry, the defense for Jacksonville is just plain awful.
Yeah, they're no good. That's all I need to say about them. Galladay is really good, and I think we do this with guys, especially when they start the season injured. We don't see him play, and we kind of forget. We're like, Kenny Galladay, he's good. I remember him from last year, but he's not really that good. He's not as good as this guy or that. And then they get out on the field, and you're like, oh yeah, like I forgot how good he is. He's really, really good. And I think you could put AJ Brown in this category as well. It's like, man, they get out onto the field, and then you see the entire offense change.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about the Lions as kind of a even good offense. Kenny Galladay comes out on that field, and you're like, whoa, now Kenny Galladay's going off. Now DeAndre Swift is going off. AP is still getting his. It's kind of like you're just looking at it and you're like, wow, this one guy can change the entire fortunes on one side of the ball. And, Kenny Galladay is one of those dudes. And, I think the Lions are going to be smart and re-sign him, but they should quickly. So we're going Packers and the Buccaneers now. Rodgers falls apart, and Rojo and Gronk combined for 3 touchdowns. And if Rocky's still in the chat, I know he's not going to like us spending time talking about Rojo, but Rojo's been looking good these last couple of weeks, man. No Leonard Fournette to get in his groove, and he's kind of taken the reins, and he's kind of been riding, and he's had 2 really good weeks. But was there anything in that game that you saw, Bill?
I mean, this just proves what pressure does to quarterbacks, even if they're some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean, we've seen it with Brady before. I mean, they get a little jittery, and they're not their normal selves. And I mean, that's exactly what happened today. Or I mean, this week was. I mean, Sue got he shoved over Rodgers the one time and got the personal foul, and then he was up on Rodgers the whole rest of the game, and he just looked scattered. And sometimes that happens. It's just a defense just destroys the offensive line, and there's nothing you can do. And by the time you get behind, you need to get that time. When you get behind, you need the time to make those passes, and you're not getting it. And it's just, I mean, it was just a defense dominating an offense, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, but I don't hear enough people talking about it. The Tampa Bay defense is damn good. Like, they can cover, they can get at you. They stop the run, they stop the pass. I mean, they're good. They're one of the top 3, and I may even be shortchanging them by saying top 3 defenses in the league.
And last year they were really good at stopping the run, but people could just abuse them aerially. So they've improved, and it's probably a compliment to everything, though, right? You bring in Tom Brady, the offense is more efficient. They're on the field longer. They're not giving up all these turnovers, so the defense is on the field less, so they're able to perform at a higher rate throughout the game. I mean, it's the beauty of the sport, right? Like, I mean, you can improve a certain area on the complete opposite side of the team, by improving something on the offense to help the defense, or vice versa. It's pretty cool how that happens.
And it's like, like you hear everybody say, especially during broadcasts, it's about all three phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams. If you have a special teams that can, pin guys back in the end zone and return, punts and kickoffs for good yardage and get you further up the field, that your offense doesn't have to work so hard. It's the same thing, like you said with Tom Brady. They're not throwing an interception twice a game. Now all of a sudden, that's 2 less series that your defense has to try to shore up, or throwing interceptions, where you're putting the other team's offense on, the 2-yard line, and now you're in goal line trying to stop. It all goes together, and it's truly amazing how that works. So, yeah, I mean, Bucks defense, they damn good. So Rams and 49ers. Here's my takeaway from this. Kittle is so damn good. I mean,
true.
So many injuries on that team, both offensively and defensively. And George Kittle was injured, for some of those games as well. But since he's come back, he has not been playing games. He has been dominant. And, I might be underselling it by saying dominant.
And I mean, and Shanahan called a pretty fantastic game. Like, it was all short passes. It was quick passes. So Aaron Donald was completely taken out of the game because of that. And I mean, that's how they kind of just, they just kind of walked away with the game because of that. And, if he does that with Garoppolo, Garoppolo's gonna look a lot better statistically than he did, the week before, when he was still fighting that ankle. So, I mean, Garoppolo is probably somebody you can grab if you lost Dak or something. And if he's on a team that's, maybe struggling, he might not be a bad ad, because you could probably get him reasonably cheap, and he has the potential to still be a player for you in the future. Super flex.
Right, obviously super flex. No, I agree with all of that. So, if you're a contender and you did lose Dak, Jimmy G is one of those guys that you don't have to pay a whole hell of a lot for him. You might get some great production, even if it's just due to the fact that, George Kittle is dominating every damn game.
And a great coach.
Yeah. Bills Chiefs. Here's my takeaway. Kelce is so damn good. I mean,
true.
We've seen some good games from him. He gets 90 yards. Maybe he throws a touchdown in there. But this was the game where he really kind of was like, all right. Maybe he saw the Sunday night game and he's like, wait a minute, George Kittle's getting way too much pub right now. I got to come out and show that I'm the tight end one. And he did it. I mean, he's going to, unless, barring injury, and I hope that doesn't happen, he's going to be tight end one again for the 5th straight year. I mean, nobody at any position does it, and he is well on his way to doing it. Anything from this game, Bill?
I mean, you kind of saw the difference between the two quarterbacks in this one. I mean, I think that Josh Allen's really taken some strides, but he still gets jittery. He's still kind of, his passing kind of, he's kind of got that issue where he gets a little, his accuracy kind of goes. He was airmailing wide open wide receivers as well. So that's something that, I think he seems to improve every year. So I believe he will improve that, but he's just never going to be great at that. I mean, that's not where his major skill is, and I mean, his legs are going to be a big help to him, but yeah, the running backs don't look great for them either. So it's kind of an interesting, I was hoping Singletary would look better. I mean, he had one good game, but I'm not really sure what you can really expect from him.
Yeah, and John McGlynn brings up a good point. Due to rain, both teams were afraid to get into the shootout and tried to control the clock. And The Chiefs did that with over 200 yards rushing, which is not a Andy Reid or Kansas City Chiefs staple, but they proved that if it comes down to that, and hey, let's face it, weather gets bad in December and January, that they have that in their back pocket that they can go to and ice some games away with that as well. So we're gonna go to the last game on the slate, and the Cardinals and Cowboys. This is hard to talk about for me. Kenyon Drake and Christian Kirk lead the Cards to a win against the Cowboys. They just played bad, and I want to preface this by saying I actually think the defense played decently. Obviously, Christian Kirk had that one just breakaway where he dusted the cornerback and went long for a big touchdown, but Zeke Elliott fumbling it twice put them in two bad spots where they gave up touchdowns. And, kind of it's one of those things where if you take away the offensive mistakes, again, we're talking about offense affecting defense, maybe the defense gives up, 24 points instead of 38 points. And we're not looking at another game where the defense kind of gets abused. Is there anything you saw in this game, Bill?
No, I think Dalton struggled a bit. I think that the Zeke fumbles were the big thing. That was just it completely destroyed any chance they had. Amari looked good. Gallup had that drop, which hurt. And I gotta say, CD didn't look fantastic, but he still caught 7 to 10 targets. So it's not like so fantasy wise, he was fine. But I think we're gonna see a lot of inconsistencies with that offense now because defenses are gonna they know the offensive line's bad right now.
Yeah.
And so I think we're gonna see Zeke struggle running the ball. And Kyler, he looks pretty. His running is incredible right now. Like he looks so fast, and he's so good about sliding before he gets hit. It doesn't matter where on the field, like he's sliding, and that's what you want out of a running back or a running quarterback is a guy that's going to get to the ground when he knows he's going to get tackled. He doesn't even get touched then. And former baseball player knows how to slide, so it's just like. He looks really good. The only thing he's going to always struggle with is throwing in the middle of the field because he can't see over those linemen. And that's going to be something that, defenses are going to be able to adjust to even more and cause him some issues. So they'll have to get a little creative with the play calling for him for that. But, Hopkins is just incredible. Like he is so awesome. Like I don't even know what to say, but yeah, that's that. Drake, I don't know. I'm not counting him in as a, RB, 18 or better yet. So I got to see that 2-3 more games before I'm comfortable throwing him in. You got to throw him in if you got him, but he's not somebody I'm like, oh, great, I get to put Kenyon Drake in this week.
Oh, thanks to the FTC, and if you're trying to figure out what the FTC is. The Fantasy Timeline chat. If you want to be a part of it, hit me up at Real Fantasy TL or Bill at Super Duperflex or hit us up at Fantasy Timeline. They provided this great stat. Kenyon Drake is currently 4th in the NFL in rushing yards. So, yep. We do kind of bag on him because the first lot of weeks were not good.
But, 0 catches. There's a lot more than just rushing yards for us too. But that is surprising that he is up in that top 5 for sure.
I was shocked. So that's our breakdown of that last game, and I'm going to go into my mini rant here. A lot of people are on Twitter right now saying that the Dallas Cowboys, among other teams, but the Dallas Cowboys should trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Don't get me wrong. You get the YOLO God in Dallas, I'll be the first guy cheering him on, happy as anything, just watching him, as I like to say, fuck it and chuck it. But the Dallas Cowboys and Rocky, you may or may not agree with me. The Philadelphia Eagles at this point of the season, with the amount of injuries that both teams have, need to be actively trying to lose. Listen, right now, the difference between their record and winning their division is 9 draft slots. What's the use of having one pointless home playoff game that you get blown out by like Seattle or somebody like that? What, to say that you made the playoffs and hang an NFC East banner in the stand? Like, who cares? Like, both teams are really beat up. Stop with the, Ryan Fitzpatrick to Dallas. Like, stop. Ryan Fitzpatrick could go to a whole lot of teams that are, in the play, maybe go to San Francisco and help pull that team to, to an NFC West title and maybe a playoff run, or, there's a lot of places he can go. Dallas ain't it. And yes, Andy Dalton looked terrible on Monday night. I can admit that. I traded a first-round pick to get him in a Superflex league that I'm contending in. So nobody was more disappointed than me about it. But stop with Ryan Fitzpatrick to Dallas. Like, those are teams that need to actively be trying to not win their division so they have a better draft pick to merge with all of their players that hopefully get healthy during the offseason and come back. That's my rant. All right, so after that, we're going to see what we saw on the timeline, Bill. It's our favorite part. It's what we're here for. It's what we do. So this first one here is from J Money at J Money Jarrett, our boy. See him around all the time. This is Dynasty full PPR. All right, so would you want T. Higgins and Cam Akers or Miles Sanders? Would you like me to go first?
No, yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. I think I'm gonna lean Miles Sanders, just because I think that he's easily when he blows up a few games, I think you can move him very easily, and I think that that's really my only reason. I love T. Higgins. So who would I rather have? I would rather have T. Higgins on my roster, but I think it's so much easier now. Like, I mean, when we look at these. There's so many wide receivers. Like, it's so easy to add a young up and coming wide receiver that, like, I'm not certain T. Higgins is going to be, the bee's knees for the next 5 years. Like, I just don't know. So I would rather get the in-demand running back that I think I can probably even get more than that at some point during the season.
All right. So let me reframe the question then. If you have Miles Sanders, would you trade him for T. Higgins and Cam Akers?
It depends. I mean, it all depends on my team and if I'm contending, no, I'm absolutely not doing that. Because I want that running back who's going to be able to get me those points. I mean, I have so many teams where there's so many, like, I'm playing Duke Johnson and Corey Clement this week. You know what I mean? It's just like one of those things. Like, it's very nice to have that running back that's putting up points, and he's going to get, catch X number of passes a week. And, like you said, he's been getting these big runs. And, if he can put a little bit of, maybe the team improves when they get these wide receivers back, like Rager's back, Djax back, Dallas Goedert back, maybe Alshon comes back, which I'm not holding my breath on that one. I think that's more of they're just freezing him out because they don't like what he did with, like, talking about stuff in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
But point being is I think that, like, as much as I'm a wide receiver guy, I think when you get one of those guys who's really producing like that, and especially this year with so many running backs out, I think you got to go with the running back. Or I got to go with the running back. You can do what you want.
I can't do what I want. And I'm going to go opposite here. Not because I like going opposite of you, but I'm just a big T. Higgins fan.
For sure.
And I'll admit I was late to the party. Thought T. Higgins was good during the draft process, but you know, I wasn't really sure if he was great. And then he got drafted to the Bengals, and I said, man, they already have Tyler Boyd. They already have, you know, a returning AJ Green. You know, they hyped up John Ross during the offseason. And I didn't know, I thought it was going to be, you know, maybe year 2 where we saw the T. Higgins breakout, if it ever came. And kind of like Justin Jefferson, you know, I was wrong. You know, he's kind of doing it right now. And, you know, Miles Sanders is one of those guys to me that I feel like he is better when there is a second guy there to kind of help him out, a second running back to either give him plays off or, you know, maybe take the pass catching work so that he can focus on the running type deal. And I know it's a nitpicky thing to say, but I think it's more my love of T. Higgins as opposed to really finding anything to dislike about Miles Sanders. But hey, Jay Money, you just heard both sides of it. Why, you know, each of us would like one side over the other. And this was relatively close. Bill, you were on the winning side here, 56% to the 44% for the T. Higgins and Cam Akers side. And I didn't talk much about Cam Akers just because right now that whole backfield there is kind of hot flaming garbage. Not garbage, but it's a mess. It's kind of like you got, you know, your Darrell Henderson roaming around, Malcolm Brown makes an appearance here and there, you know, and the way Darrell Henderson has been playing, he's a dude that
he looks pretty good.
I didn't have faith in him last year, and he proved me right, and I didn't have faith in him this year, and he's proven me wrong. And if he keeps on this track that he's on currently, you know, the best you can see for Cam Akers is like, you know, a running back by committee thing, which, you know, usually is not beneficial unless you're talking about like a Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb situation. So, you know.
Yeah, and he's not the pass catcher, so that's another thing that's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just a little bit more on my point about the running back versus wide receiver, just offenses are going to where you just see that ball spread around so much. And the wide receivers, I just don't know unless you have one of those guys that's for sure like that go-to guy, you know, one of those top 5 guys. And, you know, I'm sure a couple of these rookies will end up being one of those guys, and maybe T. Higgins is one of those guys. You know, they spread the ball around so much now. And to be able to get a running back that you feel good about getting 70% of the touches or whatever it is, I think that's you know, that's kind of also why I lean that way. There's so many wide receivers out there that are going to get 20% target share.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think if you kind of, you know, played the this or that game that we like to play, you know, would you rather have Miles Sanders or whoever the guy is above him? I feel like Miles Sanders is almost the cutoff for this deal. I feel like if you go any higher than Miles Sanders, it's going to be whatever that running back is.
Gotcha. And I'm not a Miles Sanders guy either, to be honest with you. I have 0 shares of Miles Sanders, except for a redraft. I have him in 1 redraft, and that's it. But I do have a fair amount of T. Higgins, so it's funny. Maybe that's why I'm even leaning that way, because I always want to diversify a little bit. So
yeah,
that could very well be just something in my head telling me to do that.
And I think Miles Sanders is that cutoff, and I think Miles Sanders is close. Like, if I see this trade, I kind of look at it and go, yeah, like I see it from both sides. Like I see why the Miles Sanders owner did it, and I see why the T. Higgins and Cam Akers owner did it. So, and Twitter, you know, Twitter doesn't like to agree on anything. This is pretty close for a Twitter poll. So, I think usually those are pretty even. So this next one here is from Fantasy House at the Fantasy House. Rest of season redraft. Half. I'm assuming half point PPR.
That's what I'm thinking.
He can only keep 1. So he's got Tua, Gardner Minshew, or Daniel Jones. So I'm going to go with this one. Bill, we're probably going to agree on this one. There was a majority here, but I am going with Tua. Listen, we saw Tua for whatever 30 seconds of play at the end of a blowout game for the Dolphins. So we can't base anything that he does on an NFL field on that. But I think he has the highest upside. I mean, I think we can both agree Daniel Jones has been terrible for fantasy and for reality. So I think that automatically knocks him off the list. So for me, it's really between Tua and Gardner Minshew. And we know that Gardner Minshew can have that high ceiling. But, man, sometimes Gardner Minshew he can also really disappoint you. So I guess it's more of the unknown with Tua and kind of what we all predicted him to be during the draft process that leads me towards Tua. Where are you going, Bill? Who are you taking if you can only have one?
Like, my first gut response is Minshew, because they have a terrible defense. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think the volume, just the volume's so high that I feel better about him for the season. I get the Tua thing, but you just don't know, right? Like, I mean, he could come in. I mean, maybe he runs the offense so efficiently that he's only throwing the ball 25 times a game, and that's not exciting and that's not good. And so I think I want Minshew for this year. I might regret that, but I feel like I just like that. Like, last week, I give him a pass, I think, because that game had 15-mile-an-hour winds pretty much the whole game. And he doesn't have a strong arm, so that's he's going to have a hard time cutting that ball through the wind, where Stafford has a rifle. And so that was just an advantage for the Lions in that game as well. So I think that we can give Minshew a pass on that game. And that was his worst game, I think, for the season. He might have had one other bad one, but I'm just banking on the volume, I guess, and that he's good enough and he's got enough. Like, DJ Chark's a good enough weapon for him.
And there you go. And let's see, Tua came in at 61%, and Gardner Minshew came in at 34%. So, Fantasy House, if you're leaning Minshew like Bill is, maybe this is time where you try to put together a little trade with Tua involved and maybe get yourself an RB2 or something, another position that you need, and kind of sell off and hope you made the right decision. Because I mentioned it when I gave my explanation on why I picked Tua. It's the unknown. You're kind of going off of what you projected him to be during the draft process, and what we do. How many quarterbacks have we said are going to be real good in the league that end up busting out, and how many quarterbacks? Gardner Minshew is an example that we didn't think would be anything that are good NFL quarterbacks. We just don't know until they get out on the field and they prove it. So, there you go. You have at least an explanation now for Tua and for Gardner, and I think we both agree that Daniel Jones can get kicked to the curb. So this next one here is from Jester It Up at Jester It Up. This is a 12-team Dynasty Superflex tight end premium. So one side we got Saquon Barkley. On the other side, we have a early 21 second and Jonathan Taylor. So, Bill, I will let you go first here. Do you like yourself a little Jonathan Taylor early second, or are you on the Saquad's train here?
So if this question was asked right after Saquon got hurt, it would have been a Jonathan Taylor by 80-20 probably. Because Taylor had a couple big games, and Saquon, regardless of what Jonathan Taylor did, Saquon was averaging 2.8 yards a carry or 1.8 yards.
1.8 yards, yeah.
And so that doesn't change regardless of what Jonathan Taylor has done since, and that's still a concern to me. Is that offensive line going to get better? Is what's going to happen for Saquon? And you're losing another year of Saquon. I mean, that's the whole other thing. running backs have 7 years max if you're like an elite guy, and you just lost 16% of his career this year. So that's a huge hit. So I'm more than happy to take Jonathan Taylor. I like him. I still like him. I mean, he's behind a good line, even though they're dinged up. And he's playing. So, I mean, there's a lot of positives for that. And an early second isn't anything to, sneeze at. So I'm taking Jonathan Taylor in the second.
All right. We disagreed on the first two, and we're going to agree on the third one here. I'm with you on the early second and Jonathan Taylor. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago on another pod. I have a feeling, and I should get on Twitter and pick like Ethan Turner's brain about this, but first we're talking about a high ankle sprain last year. Now we're talking about an ACL tear, and I'm kind of worried that these injuries are starting to pile up. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that this might kind of start we're getting to the point where we have missed the peak of Saquon's value. I don't think his value will be as high as it was probably during the offseason this year if you were trying to trade him. So, yeah, give me Jonathan Taylor, who, everyone had as either running back one or running back two during the process, plus an early second. And again, I'm going to shout out Open Bar because I was listening to them while I was working today. And they had Ray Garvin, Ray GQ, on Twitter, and he's talking about the depth of the 21 class. There are a lot of guys, and you're going to go pretty deep in this year's draft. Obviously, if everyone who's supposed to commit to the draft does commit to the draft. So an early second is going to get you a player that you are probably going to like a lot, on top of getting Jonathan Taylor, who was the RB1 or RB2, depending on who you talk to, in the 20 draft. I mean, I wouldn't be too mad on getting those two assets and getting rid of Saquon, who I don't know will ever get to the point value-wise where he was. And it's so funny. Our man, Steve Dennis, he's worried about us. He said, you guys are going to get kicked out of the DAP network with that kind of talk. I mean, our boy Brian Harr does rule with a heavy fist. I'm sure as soon as he hears my opinions are my own, so I don't want Bill to get wrapped up in this unless he agrees with me.
Right?
My opinions are my own, but yeah, I think this might kind of be the beginning of the end of Saquon's value. So, sorry, Brian, if you're hurt by this, but here's a good one from our boy John McGlynn. Dynasty Superflex PPR, 12-team, 30-man rosters. Dak or Breeze and Michael Thomas. Win now and long-term views. So, I'll take this one first. If I am a contender, give me Breeze and Michael Thomas. I think once Michael Thomas gets back on the field, he and Breeze are going to pick up where they left off. And that's going to get you a lot of points, and points that you need on your way to trying to get that championship. If you're rebuilding, give me that Dak, man. Dak is going to be back in 4 to 6 months based on what all of the doctors are saying. I guess there's kind of an infection period that they worry about post-surgery. He has gotten past that point with no infection, which is good news. We heard all the issues with Alex Smith and the infections that he had after his surgery, which was a lot worse than what Dak is going through right now. So I don't want to try to tell anyone that they're the same thing. But I think Dak is going to come back in that 4 to 6 month period. I personally do believe he is going to get either franchise tagged or signed by the Dallas Cowboys. So that's a lot of also what I'm basing this off of, and we've seen what he can do in this offense. By the way, Prescott is still leading the league in passing yards, and he didn't play last week. So kind of shows what the kind of the high end can be of that offense with him at the helm, which is why I would want to take him if I was the contender, or if I was the rebuilder. Excuse me. So those are my views. Bill, what about you?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much exactly what the case is. If you're contending, then definitely the Breeze Mike Thomas side, and if not, Dak. It's pretty cut and dry. I think that's where most people will kind of fall on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually made a trade for Dak in a 2 QB league and kind of got thrashed on Twitter a little bit about it.
I'll talk about it. I didn't see this. So
nobody named me. They brought it up because it was a trade in their league. You know what I mean? So
did you get subtweeted, Bill?
I guess. Yeah, I did get subtweeted. Absolutely. So it was a 2 QB league, and I traded Dak because I feel like I was kind of in that 3rd to 4th place. I'm pretty happy with my team. I have Lamar and Carr, and then Dak was my third, or my second, or first actually, but whatever you want to say. And so I'm like, I need another quarterback. And maybe I can get something else that's going to help me this year. So I ended up getting Brady, Derrick Henry, and Edelman was like a throw-in. And like those are all like players that can help me win. And actually, if I didn't make that trade this week, I wouldn't have won this week. So it kind of worked out for me, at least short term. And like I get it, but I don't think like everybody was saying, "Oh, this is Dak by a mile, Dak by a mile," And I'm just like, all right, that's fine. I mean, everybody wants the guy who did really well, for 4 games, but let's not kid ourselves. There is a lot of unknown for Dak's future. And,
yes.
I mean, exactly what you said. Like, you expect him to get franchised or you expect him to sign a deal. If you sign a deal, that's the best thing that could happen to Dak. If he gets franchised, he might just say, bump that. I'm not signing this. I'm going to sit out the year and then try to franchise me again. And, or and then all of a sudden Dak's playing for the Jets or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it's like, things aren't as good or rosy as they once were. And so that's kind of where I love Dak, and I'm keeping him on a team that I'm rebuilding. And he got injured. That actually helps me. And so I'm okay with that. And if I'm rebuilding, I wouldn't mind adding a few shares of Dak. But if you're playing to win, you got to make those kind of moves. And, I'm giving up a lot of long-term, getting Brady. But I just added another elite starter to my running back room. And so my whole lineup got better. And so I feel pretty good about the trade, but apparently nobody else liked it.
Well, I personally don't understand it because this is what we say all the time. Context matters. Obviously, if you're just kind of putting it up in a poll like 2 QB, 12 team, PPR, whatever, and that's all you put, I still don't say Dak by a mile because you get Derrick Henry. Tom Brady has been serviceable in bad games and has been actually pretty good in his good games. And then Edelman is a throw-in. So it's not like you got a bag of balls for Dak, but with you being a contender, you being a top 3 or 4 team, Dak does nothing for you. Dak doesn't help you, is not going to get you a win this year at all. Yeah. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. I mean, we've seen what Derrick Henry can do. We just saw it. He blew up last week, and guess what? He has the ability to do that on any given week. That's a fact. Tom Brady is going to win you games this year on that roster. That's another fact. All right, Julian Edelman is Julian Edelman. Maybe he gets you like a 15-point week one week and maybe helps you out in a flex or something like that.
Yeah, he's a bye week guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't get the hate for it, especially like, listen, I gave up a first round pick for Andy Dalton in the league I'm contending in. You know, it's a 16 team super flex. Starters are not plenty, not a plenty at all. And, you know, now it's a pick that looks like it's going to be lower end of the first round in that 12 to 16 range. But
which is essentially a early second.
right. So, you know, and I needed, and listen, it didn't work out for me this week. Andy Dalton, I mean,
But it's just 1 week.
I won anyway, but I didn't win because of Dalton. That wasn't the move that made me win this week. But listen, I knew going in, Andy Dalton has a terrible prime time, you know, record. He just doesn't do good on Sunday night, Monday night games. So we knew that. I was prepared for that. And you know, but you have to be aggressive. You have to make those type of moves in order to win championships. And
Yep.
you know, when they work out for you, you don't care that you gave up a first for Andy Dalton or that you gave up Dak for, you know, Tom Brady, who may not even be playing next year, and Derrick Henry and Julian Edelman, who also might not be playing next year. Championship cures all that, and you worry about all that other stuff in 2021 while you're telling all your boys.
Exactly. We're not playing this.
Right.
We're not playing this just to float through and conserve when you lose a player. Like if you have a real shot, go for it. And like don't just go, oh, I lost this guy, so I have one less guy to put into my lineup. Well, you know, just make the moves that you can that are going to help your team. Like just letting somebody sit by the wayside and you lose, like we were talking about Barkley before, like you lose a whole year of his service.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Dak, how many more, like, what's he going to play, a decade? Like, if everything works out, and you just lost 10% of his career.
Right.
So even if you sell light, you know what I mean? It's not like his price should be the exact same now as it is before the injury, because you lost a year of potential.
And you know me, Bill, you know I like to get into the mental side of this sometimes, and I think as players we think dynasty, and we think that we can't mortgage our future for right now. And it probably has cost people a lot of championships.
Sure.
Because they don't want to make the move that helps them for the next 6 months and may hurt them for the next year.
Yep.
Because they're like, well, this is dynasty. Like I have to be thinking about the future at all times.
Yep.
But really the goal of every year should be winning a championship or rebuilding your team so that you can get to a championship level.
Right.
Like, guess what? You don't make that move and you drop from third or fourth to sixth. What good did that do you?
Well, and if you saw like the actual like build of my team, like I started this was a really young team. Like, you know, Jacobs, you know, I have Jacobs, Kareem Hunt is my oldest running back. You know, I have Darrell Henderson and now Henry, but I have Michael Thomas, Hopkins. And then I have a bunch of the young guys like Ruggs, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown. You know, so it's not like I'm mortgaging the future. Like I have guys I have young guys, but I've added vets this year by trading some quarterbacks I had. And now all of a sudden it's like a decent. So even though I made a trade to add age and guys who are probably in their last couple of years of being producers, like, it's okay. You can lose some of that value to win, and I'm totally content in doing that.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, I love getting into the mental side because sometimes we have these built-in fallacies about dynasty, and we need to kind of shed those because, yeah, like everybody wants to be the dynasty. They want to win, you know, 2 years straight or 3 out of 4 years, but Bill, you and I have played this game for a long time, and you don't see a lot of back-to-back champions, and you don't see a lot of guys that win 3 out of 4 championships because teams are always making moves. Teams are always, even the move you made, it could help you win a championship next year. And the guy who got Dak, it could help him win a championship next year. If you're in a good dynasty league, everybody's making moves via trade, via the waiver wire, via draft that, changes up the dynamic every year and makes it very hard for teams to win, multiple championships in a short amount of time. So on that note, Bill, I think we did well. I think, for being 50, I think we did pretty damn good. I don't know what you think.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday to us, 50. And then, then we're knocking on the door of 1 year of fantasy goodness. Can you
a couple more weeks and we're officially a year old?
I know. Yeah, it's amazing. We'll be talking about that a little bit more next week, but yeah, so on that note, thank you to everybody that was in the chat, man. The chat was popping. We had John McGlynn, we had our boy Rocky, Steve Dennis, people popping in and out. I saw at one point we were up to like 7 people in the chat. It was crazy. I was like, whoa, what do we do? But we appreciate you guys. You guys make it so much fun asking questions, giving comments. It makes our show so much better, and that's because of you guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, like like everyone I just mentioned, just remember to hit subscribe, hit the bell so that you know when we go live. And it's not just us. We're on the DAP Network. You're watching us on the DAP Network page right now. So when other people on the DAP Network are doing things and go live, guess what? You're going to see that too. And guess what? Everybody on the DAP Network is pretty awesome. So you want to get alerted to that stuff. If you're listening to us on the podcast, we appreciate it. It means a lot to us. An hour and 21 minutes in, you could literally be doing anything else with your time. Working, recreation, sleeping, listening to other podcasts, whatever. And you decided to listen to us. Steve Dennis is partying. He's got the hats on with the guy with the little thing in his mouth, whatever those things are called.
Jeez.
Probably could have worded that better, but at this point, I'm just rolling with it. So yeah, we do appreciate it. It's a long time to listen to us, and me at the end of this just totally not doing well with words. But if you are listening to us on podcast, remember to subscribe, which you already are, but tell a friend. I've been saying this every week for a little while. Take grandma's phone, subscribe. She won't know the difference. And then hit us up with a rating and review, because those reviews, they do help. We do read them. They are important to us. Bill says he doesn't read them. We know Bill reads them. Bill's a diva. He needs to get his ego straight every now and then. Bill is the.
Now that you say that, I'm actually gonna go look to see if we have any new reviews.
Bill's the diva of this podcast. If you haven't realized it by now, but yeah, it does help us out. We do read them, and we use that feedback to make the show better. So, Bill, on that note, man, we are out of here.